everybody, my name is Krista and I work here at the Lewiston Public Library on the children's floor, and I'm going to talk to you today about a kind of book that I am passionate about, which is wordless picture books. All picture books use pictures to tell their stories, but wordless picture books have no words or very, very few words and just use the illustrations to tell their stories. Sometimes they'll have a few words, such as sound effects, but usually they rely just on the pictures to tell the story. They're great for pre-readers, that's kids who aren't reading independently yet, because they can sit with the book and just pore over it, and they don't need anyone to tell them what's happening in the story because they can see it. They're also great to share too. So I'm going to give you a few tips on how to share a wordless picture book with a child. One of the things to do is flip through the pages, have the child sit next to you or on your lap, and just observe what you see. Talk about it with them. Ask them questions. We can talk about what the characters are feeling, what they might be, what their actions show us, what's changing from one panel to another. Ask lots of questions, observe what you see, let the child lead the way. Let them point at things, let them talk about what they're noticing is going on in the story. And it can be a really great opportunity to just be quiet together, to talk together, to have a really relaxing time with a wordless book. So I'm going to share with you some of my favorites now. There's a lot, and it was really hard for me to narrow it down and pick just a selection to talk about today, but I'm going to try. So first I'm going to share with you the Flora Books by Molly Idle. And there's a few of these. There's Flora and the Flamingo, Flora and the Penguin, Flora and the Peacock that we have here at LPL. And each one shows the little character, Flora, with a different kind of bird. And they're usually dancing or mimicking each other's movements. This would be a really great book to share with a child that likes to act out what they see in books. There's also usually lots of flaps to open, which is really fun. The illustrations are simple. There's a lot of white space, so you can really focus in on what's going on. And in the Peacock book, there's especially a really cool fold out that's really fun. So those are the Flora books by Molly Idle. Another illustrator who does wordless books that I really love is Susie Lee. And she has these really sketchy pencil illustrations that she combines with other elements to tell stories. So this one is called Wave, and it shows a little girl at the beach playing with the wave, the water, and some seagulls. And she uses a splash of color combined with the sketchy pencil illustrations that are really simple, and I love how she does that. She also has this book called Shadow, which is meant to be read up and down, which is really different from a lot of books, where the top illustration is a drawing and the bottom illustration is just the shadows of those objects. So that's a really fun and unique way to read. And her other one is called Lines, and this one's perfect for this time of year because it features ice skating, and it shows a child, again with that same sketchy pencil style, ice skating on a pond, drawing lines with their skates. And this one would be really great for a child that likes to trace with their fingertip. So those are Susie Lee's books. Another wordless book illustrator that I love is Becker. And he has this series, Journey, Quest, and the third book in the series, which is checked out right now, is called Return. And these all share the quest of two children into a magical land, and the illustrations are just gorgeous. He uses watercolors, and there's just richness of detail. There's so many things to look at and see in these stories. They go to all these fantastical and beautiful places. And they're the kinds of books that you could stare at for hours. He has this other one that's a standalone called A Stone for Sasha. And it tells the story about a little girl. And after her dog dies, she finds a special rock to put down. And then the book follows the journey of that rock through time. So you go from the child finding the rock and throwing it in the sea to how that rock came to earth, and through all these different phases of time, from dinosaurs forward to the end where you see the rock again. So that's really beautiful. Now I'm going to share with you a couple of graphic novels that are wordless. So if you have children that prefer comics or graphic novels, these are great picks. This one is called Robot Dreams, and it's the story of a friendship between a dog and a robot. And it just shows them as they go through the seasons. And it's really simple illustrations. And it has a few words here and there with signage or sound effects. So it's not completely wordless, but the words used are very sparing. Another beautiful graphic novel that's wordless is The Only Child by Guo Jing. And this one shows a child who follows a stag into the woods one day, and that leads them on an adventure into a magical land. And one of the beautiful things about this one is the way the emotions are drawn. You can really get a sense of how the child is feeling in different panels of the comic. So that's called The Only Child. And then for younger kids who want to start reading comic books but maybe aren't reading on their own yet, there's the Bow Wow books, which I recommend. They're really simple illustrations, and they tell the story very clearly without needing any words at all. All right, and I'm just going to share with you two standalone picture books that I love. One is called Window, and this is a new release that just came out, and I read this recently and I just loved it, so I wanted to share it with you. And it shows this child going home one day from school and passing different windows, and then each page opens up to show a pen and ink illustration of what's inside that window. And each one is just full of detail. This is the kind of book that you could read multiple times and see something new each time you read it. So that's called Window. I'll show you one more. And that's by Marian Arbona. And then the last one that I'm going to share with you is another standalone. And this is a fairly new book, and it's called Hike by Pete Oswald. And it's just a child and their father going for a hike up a mountain. And it shows their hike step by step through the illustrations. There's a few words like zip, but it's mostly wordless. And it shows how they get up the mountain and all the steps along the way. And that's another really beautifully illustrated book. So I hope these tips and these recommendations helped you not be afraid of wordless picture books. We have lots more that I didn't get to talk about. If you want some recommendations, give us a call or book an appointment to come in and browse, and we'd be happy to help you find some. Thanks.